Next up, x to the fourth power equals x. Well, I don't see why not. Here we go. To solve this equation, first make sure we do not divide both sides by x, because in fact, 0 is the solution for this equation. If we divide both sides by x, we are dividing both sides by 0. So instead, let's bring the x to the other side and we get x to the fourth power minus x equals 0, and then factor out the common factor x. And we have x times x cubed minus 1 is equal to 0. Then we put the first factor equal to 0, and that's it. X is equal to 0. It's one of the solutions. Then we put the second factor, x cubed minus 1 is equal to 0. And then we can add 1 to both sides, and we get x cubed equals 1. And then we do the cube roots both sides, cancel, and we have x equals the cube root of 1, which is just 1. And we are done. Right? Yes, if you are only looking for real solutions, then yes, these are the only two real solutions for this equation, and we are done. However, if you want to look for the complex solutions, in fact, we actually have to do more. And before I show you though, I would like to ask you, have you guys ever wondered, when we solve quadratic equations such as x squared equals, let's say, 1, when we take the square roots both sides, yes, they cancel, but they tell you to put the plus or minus here, so you actually have two answers, x is equal to plus or minus 1 for this equation. How come we don't do that right here when we take the cube roots on both sides though? Technically, we have to do something similar to this, but not the plus or minus. What we are going to do is, whenever we take the cube roots both sides, we are going to multiply this result by 1, omega, and omega squared. Well, what's the omega? I'm going to write it down right here for you guys real quick. So note, omega is equal to the complex number negative 1/2 plus I times square root of 3 over 2, and omega squared equals negative 1/2 minus I times the square root of 3 over 2. So in fact, we have two more answers. This is just 1. 1 times omega is just omega. So we have the second answer from here. We get negative 1/2 plus I square root of 3 over 2. And then we have the third answer from this equation. This is 1 times omega squared, which is just that. So x equals negative 1/2 minus I square root of 3 over 2. So these are the complex solutions for that equation. Now, how in the world did we end up with these values for omegas? Let's take a look. So here's the idea. We are going to define that omega be the number so that omega to the third power equals 1. So what we're trying to find is all the cube root of the number 1. And to do so, bring the 1 to the other side. So we have omega cubed minus 1. And notice 1 is the same as 1 cubed, so I can put that down right here. Because this way, we can actually factor this as a difference of 2 cubes. And we get omega minus 1 times omega squared plus this times that, which is just omega, plus 1 squared, which is 1. So right here, omega minus 1 equals 0. Omega is just equal to 1. And then we have two more possibilities for omega from here. Omega squared plus omega plus 1 is equal to 0. It's a quadratic equation. We'll use the quadratic formula for it. So omega equals negative b, which is the 1 here, plus or minus square root. B is 1, square that, minus 4ac. A is 1 and c is 1, over 2 times a, which is 1. And now work this out. We have negative 1 plus or minus square root. This is 1 minus 4, which we have negative 3 over 2. And as you can see, we have a negative instead of the square root. We can bring that to the front and make that into an I. So we have negative 1 plus or minus I times the square root of 3 over 2. So as you can see, we have two more possibilities. Omega is equal to, let's take the positive right here. So that's negative 1/2 plus I square root of 3 over 2. And then the other possibility is the one with the minus here. So I can denote this by omega, maybe not 1, but you can say omega 0. And then this is omega 1, and this is omega 2. Fun fact, if you take this as your omega and square that, you will end up with this. You guys can go ahead and try it. Omega 1 squared does give you omega 2. But anyways, so now you know, next time if you take the cubes on both sides, you have 3 possibilities if you include these 2, so you can get the complex solutions. That's it.